Well, hey everybody. My name is Jared Malott. I'm here with my good friend Mateo Calise. This is the Coltist, an Indianapolis Colts and an Indiana Pacers podcast. Mateo and I now in our second season, our second NFL season, talking football, right? And then we decided with all the, well, flatly with how volatile the Colts became, uh, that it might be a good idea to hitch a ride on the Pacers wagon. And if you don't understand what's going on in the Pacers world, essentially they traded away an all-star. And generally speaking, when you trade away an all-star, Domantas Sabonis, you do not receive one. It's just generally people.
Yeah,
And the Pacers did that, are now, in my mind, light years ahead of where I thought they'd be, and put two Pacers in the 3-point contest finals at All-Star Weekend, and that should tell you the direction the team's going, right? They signed Miles Turner to a long-term, or not necessarily long-term for a center.
yeah,
To sign
it
him to a
was an
2-year
extension.
extension, and then also have two really good shooters. It's just a math game. Yeah, guy produces. Those are all 3+ players, is what we call those, right? Like guys that they're scoring, doing more for you than they're costing. And we need as many of those as we can get, right? But
Yeah,
uh, to talk about the team of the hour, right? If we're gonna sit and talk about Indianapolis sports right now, the Colts have to be the sort of like the hot button topic
yeah,
because
the hot
the
commodity.
Pacers are
Yeah,
on an off week anyway after the All-Star game, right? So I wrote this down. It's the only thing I've ever written, by the way, before any podcast I've ever done. I don't storyboard. I don't do none of that. I like to do it just raw. Just be a real person. Like for 5 minutes, can I ever watch someone just be them? But I did write today. Since the last time we spoke, brother, the Colts hired a new head coach. Uh, Shane Steichen was the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles,
yeah,
who just
for the
lost the Super
Eagles.
Bowl. But here's the thing about, I have to say it because I feel like this never gets said. The guy that lost the Super Bowl had a really good game. Like
Yeah, really good game.
Jalen Hurts balled out, and like a lot of it has to do with play calling and play design. And I'm really happy about it because we all know what was going to come out of my mouth first. So thank God that was not Jeff Saturday. And then once it was announced that like, okay, it's okay, we got us a head coach. Since then, we've lost George Lee, their analyst,
Yeah,
Brian Decker, their director of player development, two
yeah,
people
yeah,
that
and that, yeah.
they don't make a head coach. Um,
But they were really valuable guys according to pretty
very
much
valuable
anything
according
you
to
heard.
Frank
You know,
Reich,
this,
right?
yeah, these were
Because
guys
he
that
got both of them.
really, yeah. He
He
he's
decided to
credit
come with
to,
me.
like, I believe the Panthers. They are having one hell of a
Hmm.
an off season. Like
Yeah, they are with
personal
staff.
wise, they
Yeah,
get, yeah, staff wise, they get really good front office. They get Frank Reich with, and I believe like all the coaching hires that I saw them make, I was like, okay, that's a guy that I would have loved for the Colts
yeah,
to take. So those are guys that I feel good about, and it will be fun. It will be entertaining getting to see whether Frank Reich, he gets his chance with a new team, fresh start. The Panthers, they have, I believe it's the ninth overall pick. So they are perfectly set, to get the quarterback of the future, and it will be surely entertaining to watch, especially as Colts fan. And I believe, I don't know if every Colts fan is like this, but I saw this, regarding Carson Wentz. Whereas everyone that leaves the Colts fan, they tend to keep tabs on them and see how they are doing. So I'm sure that Colts Nation will be watching over the Panthers and how they do with Frank Reich. It will
right.
be a topic discussed for sure.
Right. Anytime you're the bridesmaid, right? Like anytime you're watching, Carson Wentz play for someone else, one, you're like, oh, I hope he doesn't get hurt, right? Because the thing about it was when we traded Carson Wentz away, is his quality of play determined the quality of the pick we got in return, right? So it was kind of like,
Yeah.
I need you to do good enough to be the starter for like 70%. He didn't do that, for the record.
Yeah, he
We
didn't do
didn't we
that.
didn't get we didn't get a second round pick. We got a third round pick. But I'm with you there. It's never fun to be like the bridesmaid, when you have and I was trying to remember this past year, somebody left the Colts, went somewhere else, and I think it was on the defense and balled out. And I was like, man. But one of the guys I'll never let go. I think I'm right here. Is it Jerry Hughes? Where like the
Yeah,
Colts, he went
Jerry
to
Hughes for
Buffalo,
the
had a hell of a career, and now he went to, you know what I mean? Like, damn, he was
he
like
went
good
to
for a long
Houston
time.
and had
Yeah,
like he went off week one against us. He I believe
yeah,
he even scored a touchdown. I don't know if I remember correctly, but and that was back,
that's what I'm
week
saying.
one.
Like,
We had some really high hopes for the year.
yeah, we did, man. But yeah, this week, this would be our third episode of this season, right? We start after the league year ends, right? Like after the Super Bowl, we restart our season, to get your mind right, right? So the first week we talked about, hey, the way we should organize these first, at least I think 4 weeks, 4 podcasts should be, hey, the Colts are taking a quarterback. Let's look at like the top 4 quarterbacks, and we just did it by chalk. So it's not like I think Bryce Young 1 overall, Stroud 2 overall. We didn't even talk about what we were going to title this podcast. I think because of some recent conversations we've had and a recent video I saw, we should call this the Anthony Richardson episode.
Yeah,
And the reason, the video that if you did not see, our boy Anthony Richardson, the quarterback from the University of Florida, not only rumored to be running a sub 4.540, but also posts a video on social media of him dunking from the free throw line. And I froze it. His foot is on the free throw line. He dunk it
yeah,
from the free throw line. He's a football player. He's a quarterback. Um, that means that he has a great deal of athleticism, and I think that his stock will explode come combine in a couple weeks,
yeah,
and
surely.
then leading up to the draft. As long
Yeah,
as, and again, I always have to say this because we just live in that a real world. As long as he stays healthy and interested in football, he's gonna come out looking like a freak at the combine. Um, just based on seeing that, and then like that makes me excited for all these other guys, right? So like we absolutely
yeah,
could have called this the Will Levis episode, but I ain't seeing Will Levis double pump it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not watching Will Levis show me feats of athleticism, right? So I think if I'm drafting a quarterback, I'm strongly considering Anthony Richardson based on just watching him dunk from the free throw line. Let's just
yeah.
get it out there. Like
That's an athlete.
NBA players don't normally just like hammer it from the free throw line, right? Like the guys that get paid millions of dollars to do it. He's in
Yeah, to do so. Yeah,
college. He's a college kid, and he's ripping it from the free throw line. And the dude is a quarterback. Let's do it. Let's do some Michael Michael Vick gymnastics mentally if you need to do that to put yourself in the mind frame of like, hey man, that's like a dangerous athlete in the NFL. Because there's one thing that we've learned from, at least I've learned in all this content you consume all day long. For example, Kobe Bryant said when he got to the NBA, not everybody works out like that.
yeah,
Some of the guys are just glad to be here and are like, sure, I'll come in and do some cardio, whatever. I work out on my own, right? Um, and that if you really are a hard worker, that's gonna be what carries you. And like I
yeah.
said,
To
if I
the
gotta pay
next
a
level.
bunch of money, and it's like the Colts are drafting based off raw athletic score anyway, or relative athletic score. And like, you mean to tell me Anthony Richardson's not coming in at like a high 9.9, and like you you draft quarterback differently than you draft every other position? Make that make sense to me in a league where the best athlete on the defense is trying to eat his face, right?
Yeah,
Like it's really difficult for me to, if I'm a GM, if I'm a new head coach, and I'm trying to get there, right? And the next year, by the way, could very well be coaching in the Pioneer League. So put that little pin in your cap, kids. You never know what'll happen. One day your boy might show up. So, which is probably Georgetown, I'm guessing, because they were 1-9, and my mentor's got a PhD from Georgetown. So I'm just throwing that out there. And then, so when I think about my organization that I am working for, if I'm Shane right now, fourth overall pick, if I'm the GM right now, I don't want to move. I don't want to move off the 4. I don't want to pay to go move up. It sets our franchise back further if this pick does not work out. I can hear it's almost like Chris Ballard and I, we are kindred spirits. We are saying the same shit. He just like gets paid a lot more to do that. Like there isn't a guy here, and I here I am like babbling about Anthony Richardson's athleticism. I did not say that I want him to be my quarterback. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is if I'm a head coach or a GM and I'm thinking about what is best for this organization, period. I can't expect to fix the O line with a pick, nor the wide
No.
receiver group, nor the tight end group, nor the running back group, nor my D line, nor the edge rushers. You can't do that. You can't. Maybe you can maybe draft a pass rusher and him have a significant impact on that front. But an athlete at quarterback, and I'm going to pound this drum until it breaks. An athlete at quarterback, it forces the defense to just give him up as a runner. Like you just have to let him run on you now because if he hands it off, it's Jonathan Taylor. You have to put 6+ in the box to contain the kid, or he's going to take it to the house. So he's a serious rush threat. This is how defenses will prepare for them. Like you have to shut down between the tackles rushes. Well, when you do that, you make the short throws over the middle easier, and he's a young quarterback. So all those little throws in a little halo in front of him, hey, that's what Anthony Richardson's like best at. Like if you go look, there was that we've been passing around that chart for a week. What did you see on
Yeah.
there? Holy shit. Like Anthony Richardson from 5 to 12 yards is like deadly accurate. And if you really think about what is really important in the NFL, here, I'll tell you,
Yeah, it's those.
keeping the chains moving and scoring in the red zone. And if he's good in that short to intermediate, he's going to be deadly in the NFL if he's a runner. Why? Because teams know that he's deadly accurate with the football, they're going to play better coverage.
They
And
have
when
to
and
take
when
him
they
into
eat
account.
on your run fake and then they play good coverage, baby, what happens? The man dances all the way to the end zone. He's high stepping from the 10. Like, what? What? You afraid he's gonna let it go? No, no, baby. That was a 4.45 at the combine. I brought wheels. Yeah, I have those too. And if you think about the way they use Jalen Hurts, that
Yeah, down
offense
there in
was
Philadelphia.
not
Yeah,
was not he wasn't pulling as much as he's given. And with Anthony Richardson using the same sort of simple one-sided RPO setup, where all your reads are on one side, you're taking a kid that's already a good thrower, and then he's a better athlete. And I think that if that's the direction I was going, I would want to bet on that because I don't want to be betting. Like I've said, and I've sat here and I've distanced myself from day one from Will Levis. Let me also say, hey man, University of Kentucky athletic department is on some shit.
yeah,
Fastest male in track, fastest female in track, and a top 5 draft pick quarterback. What? That said, though, I did not see feats of athleticism nor on nor off the football field for Will Levis. It just, to me, he's like a bulkier Sam Ellinger. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
sure, he's not
like
as good of an
yeah,
athlete,
saving the
not as
saving
good
the
of,
differences. Yeah,
he's got the same weakness. He doesn't have the big arm, the big deep ball. Um, and that's the big thing about this class. So everybody's gonna ask, like, nobody's got it that sweet. They got a bunch of like good to business arms where you're like, hey, that guy could be like top half of the league, but there's no world beater yet. There's this thing in my head though about player development, and that's why one of the reasons I wanted to kind of bump Anthony Richardson up and say like, hey man, it's you can make anything out of a raw athlete. You can't
yeah,
make
you do.
a raw athlete out of just anything.
Out of
You know what I mean?
anything, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it
So
makes sense. Yeah,
I think if I were a betting man, A Rich is probably gone before the Colts ever see him, because of his feats of athleticism. And again, that's one of the things that I'll coach too is like, better athletes also win. And
yeah,
teams now are now entirely betting the future of their franchises on quality of athletes. So that's why guys like CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson, they have more value in this draft than a guy like Bryce Young or Will Levis have to me, or Spencer Rattler did. Spencer Rattler's a great athlete, but he's little, right? And it's like, yeah. But he's not coming back. He's going back to play college. So good for him. He gets another year of development. He could come out
Yeah,
and he could be a
that's a good
burner.
call. Yeah, that's a good call on his behalf. I think
Just
that
a
was
little
necessary
small,
for him.
a good
Yeah,
athlete. You go back, you get one more year of development. You never know. You come out next year, you could be a world beater. He could
like
easily be a first. He
what
was
was
the
he supposed
sixth.
to be like?
I
Like it?
heard second to third round draft pick is what they had him
Yeah,
this year. hmm So yeah, and I think he's South Carolina, right? Which is like QBU.
yeah, yeah, and he had, I don't know if it was like two or three, like one or two, sorry, transfers. I
hmm
remember watching him. I believe it was, QB1, the
hmm
Netflix show. And I honestly, when I first started watching him, I was like, okay, this is a guy that for sure is going to be first round caliber.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know how that stuff usually goes, where some people that you thought, okay, this guy coming out of high school, he's going to be like the next big thing, and then
Yep.
suddenly you get someone like Joe Burrow or Josh Allen. Like if you look at the top quarterbacks in the NFL right now, like not many of those were five-star recruits coming out of high school.
Yeah.
Like Joe Burrow, I don't know if he was. I don't remember him being so big. I know Josh Allen basically got only one Division 1 offer from Wyoming.
hmm
So
but look, we got to
it's
tell a
hard.
story. Josh Allen had a 2.7 GPA next.
Yeah,
So when you don't
yeah,
have
that
good
surely didn't
grades,
help. Yeah,
not going to help
it
you. No
doesn't help.
D1 school wants you. You get that over a 3.0, you to go anywhere you want. That's what a lot of kids that I grew up with that were good athletes, that's what they got told. If your GPA is not above 3.0, you're no good. This is on a 4 or a natural 4.0 scale. I imagine it's even worse now. I imagine trying to be a new athlete in college, you've got to have like a 4.0 and you've got to be an all-state in order to even get an offer. So anyway, obviously, the Colts, we've been talking about like this is a hard reset. This is new head coach, gonna get a new quarterback. I think the better athlete you get, the longer leash they get, right? Because they're gonna make more plus plays with their legs than they do minus plays with bad throws, especially given, like, again, what Anthony Richardson's good at. But yeah, the Colts set to pick a quarterback, get a new head coach that was in a system that would actually kind of fit these athletic quarterbacks coming out in this class, and then also are set to interview, hire at least three. I've heard T. Martin, I've heard Tom Manning, I've heard who's the other guy? Oh, Jim Bob Cooter.
Yeah, Gene Bob Cooter.
All being hired. Now here's the problem. Okay. So first of all, the rumor that came out was Colts are going to hire Jim Bob Cooter. Okay. But what we'd heard was Tom Manning before that. And let me just point out that that would be him taking a downward step in his career because he was the offensive coordinator for Cincinnati and he's going to go be the tight ends coach for the Colts. Again, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying this is like the rumor, right? So that must be an offer you can't refuse. And then um T. Martin gets announced, like they're interviewing him too. And it's just like, huh, is this like the Colts trying to avoid a Rooney Rule violation, or you know what I mean? Like, are they trying to like point
It
out
might
we're
be.
being diverse with our hiring process? Because that's what it feels like. Because again, like I said, the news that came out was, oh, Colts are hiring Jim Bob Cooter, and I remember being like, huh, did they interview anybody else for that? And all of a sudden, it was like Tom Manning, and it's like that would be taking a downward step for him going to be our tight ends coach because you're hiring Jim Bob Cooter, and then now T. Martin. It's like this is kind of messy. Like it doesn't feel as organized as the head coach search was.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah.
So
Mentioning like
and I get
the
it's
one
because
thing I
Shane's gonna have
can.
his input. He's gonna have his
Yeah,
guys that he wants. Um, so that's something to think
what I
about too.
was
That takes
what
some
I was
time.
thinking, it was like probably like they were going through the head coaching, process, and they also had like the little offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. Well, defensive coordinator is going to remain Gus Bradley, right? Like he's staying.
That's the hope right now. Is it's
Like
like,
nothing has been confirmed, but
nah, I haven't heard that he's like interviewed anywhere else. You know, the only bad news I think is bad news. Cleveland requested an interview for a lateral transfer for Bubba Ventrone. which for the record, to me seems like terrible decision making. There was just an environmental disaster in Northeast Ohio, and you're going to move there and take a lateral move to Cleveland. If that isn't like the setup for some random sitcom I've never heard of, like NFL coach goes from like relatively posh Indianapolis to fucking Cleveland, Ohio, to be the special teams coach, which you already are at the NFL level. And I think if you stay in Indy, everybody remembers you got passed over for this
Yeah.
head coaching search. You didn't get the interim title. They gave it to Jeff Saturday, but I would always contend, and I'm not saying that what Jim Irsay did was correct. I just want to make sure I put this on wax because I've been saying it in conversations to people. I just want to make sure I'm being consistent, Mateo. I think Jim Irsay hired Jeff Saturday because he was afraid the Colts literally were going to have an Andrew Luck situation with people on their offensive line. And I'm like, he legitimately was afraid if their play continues to be this piss poor on that offensive line, fucking Ryan Kelly's going to retire or some shit
Yeah.
in the middle of the season. Like, I'm telling you, I'm not afraid like that, but a NFL owner, absolutely watching his team play like absolute dog water is going to be like,
Yeah.
I know, I'm meddling here, but hear me out. I'm going to hire our former NFLPA union rep and our like 9-year center that won a Super Bowl to try to hold this O line together.
Yeah. Hold
And
this together and just get.
just the
Yeah.
O line. He didn't say come in here and win. Did I say that? I said he held that O line together through the season. Did they were they world beaters? No. Did they regress? Yes. Like regardless, they played better as a result of just Saturday being there. And I think on that, if that's why Jim Irsay meddled, hey, he's kind of right because nobody's retired
It,
yet.
it,
You know,
yeah.
you
It
know what I
worked.
mean? That's how I look at it. Is I'm like, obviously, I'm living in a fantasy land where I'm actually thinking like I have any concept of what Jim Irsay is thinking. But that guy is an athlete too. Like that guy's he might just be a billionaire, playboy, demented, whatever nicknames you want to call Jim Irsay, but like he played sports too, man. So like at some point, I get it. We call it meddling, but he's thinking about like I love these players and I care about them, and I don't want to let them go. But if they don't play better, I'm gonna cut them, and it's gonna happen. You think he won't fight? He fought Frank Reich, right? The guy is like the most hireable person I've ever met in my life. In fact, he was the
Yeah.
first head coach hired, and he proved me right. Like Frank Reich is every um, head coaching candidate, like candidate A. Like this is what he looked, a man of God with that was like formally did this job and then has done this job and won and only got ousted because, like we said, regression on the offensive line, right?
Yeah.
Which is this happens. It just doesn't normally happen to a player group. It's usually like one guy
Yeah.
falls off, man. But yeah,
But yeah, not usually, the five of them.
yeah, everybody's playing like doo doo. It's all mental though. I'm convinced it's 100% like it's a mental game, man. And I think that, and I've said this before, um, a lot of when you ask these pro athletes, oh, I've tried to figure it out, by the way, how to motivate millionaires, right? A lot of these athletes still need the structure. Yeah, I learned that from Kevin Durant, actually, talking about what's going on in Brooklyn. And he said, everybody wants to blame Kyrie, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody works harder than Kyrie, though. And like when we play, he's like really good. Usually he's like the best or second best player
Yeah.
on the
The best
floor.
player on the court. Yeah.
But everybody's like, yeah, he's dysfunctional. Or does he just not like the media and just like has issues being in the limelight with the media, right? And then Kevin Durant also talking about like some were meant for this heat, right? Some people were meant for torment and struggle and they're better for that and they rise above and the Colts have been using that as fuel. And I'm one of them people. I'm a firm believer that we can operate on faith all day long, but until we are just able to back that up with numbers, man, we're gonna run out of gas. And
Yeah.
it happened, and it took for record. Frank did it without a number one without a true long term solution at quarterback. did it at a winning clip with guys that aren't starters in the NFL now. You know what I mean? So hats off to Frank Reich. Like I said, I talked a lot of shit about him, but it's not it's mostly tied to like I was kind of embarrassed by him. I'm like super tied to this franchise. I have been since I came home from the Marine Corps. And I kind of feel like we got walked over, right? Like
Yeah,
that's what happened. The Colts
yeah,
is
for sure.
they gave up, and that's why Frank like lost his job. And I could sit here and say, and with one breath, that he's hireable, and the other that like I said, you can operate on this whole mental aspect of the sport for so long, but without like a true spark plug. I want to say behind the line of scrimmage because like you could do it with a running back, I still believe, but like
Yeah,
yeah, you could still have a like a true powerhouse running back. Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, coming up with CMC, all come to mind. But like you either got to have a really good, consistent downhill back or a really good, consistent quarterback to win consistently at this level. Um, and while I'm excited for Carolina, I'm also it's going to be a bumpy ride. Like they don't have all those pieces, so like he's going to overachieve. Great, man. That's not winning Super Bowls. Um, these San Francisco's, these Phillies, unless they just lose all their free agents, like they're deep.
yeah, they're there.
And like that's just in the NFC. Kansas City and Buffalo, they're gonna reload. They're gonna be right back. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people have been coming to me like, Colts are good now, right? It's like, no, man. Like we're starting over. Like the average improvement, if your team gets better year to year, the average maximum improvement is plus 4 games. So a lot of people that have been reaching out to me saying like, "Hey man, Colts are 4-12-1. I just took a plus 300 to bet the Colts win 10 games next year."
Yeah,
And I'm like, "No, they're going to win 8 games. They might be 8 and 9. And if they're 8 and 9 miss the playoffs, then I'm happy with this cuz that's plus
yeah.
4,
With a
baby.
rookie quarter, yeah,
With
with
a
a rookie
rookie
quarterback, I'm
quarterback,
happy.
you max out that plus minus. I'm great. I'm great. It's way better than being 0 and 17, which is what happens if it doesn't work out. That's why this episode is the Anthony Richardson episode. This is why I'm putting it out there like, hey, if he's available, you got to take that. You can't let the free throw line duck a quarterback that completes like 85% of his passes between 0 and 12 yards. So like you can't let that slide.
Yeah,
Um, um, but yeah, one of the things I always wanted to bring up when we talk about, I don't think when we think about quarterbacks, you actually got to watch them play, kids. You can't say QB team wins are not a QB stat, right? So like the team win loss record you can't look at. What you can do though is you can look at what the record was prior and then
prior
be
to
like,
them
"Oh,
getting
they
there,
were
yeah,
they were 2 and 10 and then the next year they won 8 games with this quarterback that's now like a first round draft pick." Oh, quarterback's probably pretty good, right? But so team wins are not a QB stat. We need everybody that listens to this podcast just put that in your brain and just listen. So that also means Super Bowls one don't matter either. Nope. When we think about what like a good to great quarterback is, it's mostly consistent above average play, right? So he's just consistently available. So the knock on Anthony Richardson is, I believe, just 1 year starting at Florida. To me, though, that's less miles on the tires, right? Right?
yeah,
Hey, that's
yeah. It
less
makes
miles
sense.
on the
Yeah,
tires, baby. That means he's got more ahead of him than behind him. And then that's ultimately kind of what you want to be doing. Because like a Joe Burrow has gotten hurt twice. He got hurt in college and then got hurt again early in his career. And I
yeah.
always wonder if that
First
takes miles
rookie
off his.
season.
Yeah, I wonder if that takes years off his career. That's just the facts of life. It's not like I dislike him. You know what I mean? Like I think he's
Yeah,
a hell of a
yeah, yeah.
football
It
player. But I think
makes
like
sense. Yeah,
getting hurt right there at that 23 to 26-year-old, it just takes some mile per hour off, baby. You know what I mean? Like you just think as chipper as you were, you know. But again, Joe Burrow is a man of destiny. He's from Ohio. It's just the way this is. So
yeah,
obviously, like we said, Colts got a lot going on. And
yeah. Shit ton of things going on. Yeah,
should suck it. Well, the Colts are going to have to make some hires here by the next time we post a
yeah.
podcast,
Surely.
right?
Yeah, it
Obviously,
will
we're
happen.
we're really coming in today saying the Colts hired Shane Steichen and have done Dick all since. So hmm, we announced some interviews. And then we can say, hey, let's switch gears. Let's talk about the Pacers, right? So we
Yeah.
can get out of here. Obviously, there's not a ton to talk about because the Pacers have been on the All-Star break.
Yeah. Tyrese played, so
Yeah. So we had Buddy Hield and Tyrese Halliburton at the All-Star game this weekend, showing you exactly why again, like we said earlier, future's bright for the Pacers too. Um, they do play Thursday. We were kind of joking when we were starting the podcast, like, oh, they're playing tonight. And we both try to like look it up and they're like, it must be on Thursday then. I'm just an
yeah.
idiot. Yeah, it's on 23rd. Okay, so yeah, we didn't miss anything. But yeah, when they play on Thursday, they won't have played in like I think 9 days. But I could be wrong. It's just been like the natural break. I was thinking last Tuesday's when they played. Wednesday?
Yeah, I believe it was last Tuesday.
Yes, yeah. So and then again, they're 9 games below 500, right? Like 25 and 34, I think. So
Yeah.
again, they got kind of a mountain to climb. They'll be the healthiest they've been, I believe, coming back off All-Star break. Um, I think that, if you just think about how many games, I think they only have like 20 something games left. You need to win the majority of those. You need to go X and 5, X and 6, not just to get back to 500, but give yourself a legitimate shot to not have to go play in game
Yeah.
into a 7-game series and sorry, be on the road the whole time. Obviously, that's a pipe dream, right? Remember, we were kind of talking about how year to year NFL teams are only going to improve like 4 games at the most year to year.
Yeah, the most.
That's just the way it works. Well, at the NBA level, what and I remember this forever. We started this podcast talking about the Pacers because they were 13 and 6.
Yeah.
They came out of the gate healthy, running everybody out of the gym. They were one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. Um, and then obviously uh, Tyrese Halliburton got hurt and missed, and they were not good in his absence. But
Yeah, not good at all. Yeah.
if you just take that group of games he missed out, whoa, like Pacers are really good. And then now, obviously, like I've said, now I'm just repeating what I'm saying, but like now they've had like an extended rest. And so I don't know about anybody else, but I'm like really looking forward to a well-rested young Pacers team. Like if you're coming out with that much confidence at point guard and two with Miles Turner playing at a high level, it's it's gonna be a fun end of the season
Yeah, for
because
sure.
all the teams ahead of them, I think, um, a lot of well, let me say it like this: a lot of teams in the NFL have one star. They have like one guy that can do it all. Obviously, the Mavs now have Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, and
And look at Doncic. Yeah.
I don't know if you watched them play. Have you seen Dallas play yet?
No, not yet.
They're not like fully integrated. It's not fully like,
Yeah,
oh
it
yeah,
shows.
I
Yeah.
hate watching them. But you see like every now and then you see this little bump pass that Kyrie did to Luka, and you're just like, I don't know if that's fair.
Yeah, they need to iron out. They need to iron out some shit, but they will be fine for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, I think basketball is an expression of self and sort of a culture thing, and like Luka's Euro style and Kyrie's playmaking ability, they work together, they flow together, and it's just a matter of time before we're watching like a top 10 highlight and like seven of them is them two, and you're
Yeah.
just like, oh shit. But
Yeah.
other
Just yeah.
but that they're in the West though, so they got to contend with that. Like you got LeBron um thinking they're gonna trade Russell Westbrook and now they're gonna and Patrick Beverley. I thought he was out of the league. He signed with Chicago today.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think that's the move. I think again, I'm trying to remember who said that, but they were saying like Patrick Beverley is the worst player in the NBA. And the only reason he's there is to like motivate his teammates and to like get in the head of the other players.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw a video of him, talking about how he came into the NBA, like how he had to, give up money of his own, and he was living with his mother and that, and you're like, okay, I get that the guy is a douchebag, and he's like, I hate playing against him, and he's like, we can curse, he's an asshole,
yeah,
but he earned it, like he worked hard for what he has right now, so it's kind of hard to root for that kind of person. It's not like he was an entitled five-star recruit who always had it all and always was, guaranteed a spot in the NBA. He had to sacrifice a lot to get
yeah,
where he is right now. So one, I can't help that kind of respect that, like you do what you do to earn your money and to
yeah.
stay in the NBA. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
not the most talented, you're not the
Mm-mm.
biggest, you're not
Nope.
the most skilled.
Mentally tough though, but like
Yeah,
can
but
can
he is
motivate your
mentally
team.
tough, and he made the effort to be where he is, and he sacrificed a lot to be where he's at right now. So it's kind of hard not to respect that, and to say, okay, like, well, I might not like him and the way he plays and the way he carries himself. I respect you. Like you clearly put in the work to be where you're at.
Yeah, yeah. And Pacers last, I think we never really did talk about. They picked up Thies, and he was injured, and he came back and he put big up minutes. They let go.
Mhm.
Um, kind of changed it up a little bit. But yeah, the Pacers didn't really make any big moves late. And have a bunch of picks in the draft. So it's kind of like you win no matter what how this ends up. This is all a positive thing. Because a lot of these teams you have first round draft picks from are ahead of you. So like
Yeah,
if you're winning with a purpose, our purpose is we're gonna go deep, make a deep run in the playoffs. Which again, I don't know that that's the plan. I'm not saying that's the plan, but I think it would be organizationally a bad decision to like tank it out from here. Like, I still think you're within 10 games of being a 500 ball club, which is generally seen as like playoff worthy, right?
yeah,
And I'm not, remember, the NFL and NBA aren't the same. So keep that in mind because in the NFL, if you're like 500, you're probably not going to the playoffs. In the NBA, though, there's
yeah.
like
You might very well be.
half the conference goes. So there's even play-in games. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you, you think about them being so they let's say they go like like 7-2 or 7-3 twice. It's like 14-6 plus 8, they'd be -1. So if they one game better, if they play one game better than they started the season, then they end up like 3 games over 500, four
Yeah,
games over 500. And yeah, and you know what? It's like, hey, that could potentially be like a 6 seed. And it's like I would rather
yeah. You
try to
work with
do
that.
that. Huh?
You work with that. You
Yeah,
you
yeah. That's
you're happy
that
with
you
that.
can win from there. Is what I'm saying. Like it's hard to even like realistically root for your team when they're in the play-in, right? Because you have to play in and then immediately go play in a series. It's just extra basketball. Um, but yeah, it's definitely, and like I said, if they miss, it's like, you got all these draft picks. At least the draft will be fun. You have a bunch of new bodies in here, and I bet you put out an even more dangerous product next year. Um, is it like I said, it certainly seems like where they're headed, and like I said, it is starting to feel like, at least to me, like the Indiana sports teams are getting their shit together.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Because I feel obviously Pacers since the Malice in the Palace. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
then
They
just thinking about the Colts, and I get it, Super Bowls aren't everything. Um, I think they're the only thing. Uh, I have to often remind myself as a Colts fan that the Colts have had two of the greatest quarterback prospects of all time
of all
in the
time.
last
Yeah,
like 27 years and have a fucking Super Bowl to talk about. So when we sit here as like fans of one of the winningest, one of the top five winningest NFL franchises, the wins don't mean shit if it isn't with a trophy. I'm sorry. I'm a fan.
yeah.
I'm allowed to
Yeah,
have
just the
like
way it is. Yeah,
I'm allowed to not be so tied to like It's different when it's your team, and then I get to say like, "Yo, my record speaks for itself," like whatever as a coach. But when on the outside looking in, it's like I know a lot of fans feel that way. If it's not a Super Bowl, the fuck it's for. You know what I mean? Like, with Matt Ryan,
Yeah.
a lot of people were like, I know a lot of people were like straight up giving up on the NFL as a whole because Matt Ryan didn't pan out for the Colts because they were just like, it just seemed like he was destined to go there and like be the heir
Yeah, lead the
apparent
team.
and
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like it's just, and then when it didn't work out, when that fairy tale didn't happen, right? Because football is still a real sport. I always think it's funny. Recently, you've heard this shit about the NFL being scripted, right?
Yeah.
It's the fuck it is. Because if it was scripted, like Matt Ryan, after being down 28 or being up 28-3 in the Super Bowl, loses it to the Patriots, whose biggest fucking rival is the Colts, and then he goes there and gets absolutely demolished, is never even a
Yeah, it's
relevant
just not
quarterback,
the yeah,
and
not the
it's
storybook
gonna end up
ending.
probably quitting, right? Is what's gonna end up happening. I saw JJ Watt made a funny joke the other day, and so I'm saying this because I'm pretty sure Matt Ryan's done too. I don't I ain't seen any video of Matt Ryan dunking from a fucking free throw line, so I don't know. Um, nice tie back. So oh shit, what was I gonna say? So as I was patting myself on the back for my joke.
Hmm.
Damn it. But no, like I said, I know there's legitimately people that like I don't even care about football anymore. And then there's people who, I mean, obviously there's people that say the world's flat, but like there's people that are like the NFL is completely rigged. And it's like, no, man, because if you were writing a fairy tale, Matt Ryan up 28-3 as the Atlanta Falcons quarterback loses to the New England Patriots, whose biggest rival is the Colts, and he goes
Yeah.
there and gets destroyed and only plays like 10 games. That's like real world Indianapolis. This is what happens. You know what I mean? When you have when you operate by faith and not by sight. And again,
Yeah.
like I've said, like I'm very much more about what is really happening than I am anything else. And like I said, there are a lot of people that even that we're colleagues with are like, oh, look, Frank Reich's gonna go to Carolina and win a Super Bowl. And it's like, oh yeah, with what quarterback? Because that guy isn't employed there. So that means they're gonna
Yeah.
get one. And you mean to tell me like he's just gonna win? He couldn't do it with a guy he picked. He
Yeah.
chose Carson Wentz and couldn't make it happen with him. So it's gonna take some time. I like him too. You know what I mean? If he wins 8-9 games, I'll be surprised. That's just the
Yeah.
way it is, though. You know what I mean? And again, I even think he's in a more winnable position, right? Because NFC South is doo doo. Now,
Yeah.
Tom Brady's gone. Who knows where Derek
Yeah,
Carr
who knows where
lands?
their car would go if he even goes to the NFC South, which just makes too much sense for it not to happen.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm Derek Carr, I would go play for the Panthers in a heartbeat. Um, but obviously he's been rumored the Saints, and I guess he visited the Jets. So there's still,
Yeah, I think it's
and his
either
brother
Saints
said
or the
on
Jets,
NFL
in my
Network
opinion.
today he's going to take his time and he's going to meet a lot of people. Um, yeah, and for the record, want to make sure we don't. I'm not tooting Derek Carr's horn too hard, but I do think that Derek Carr should have a Super Bowl ring by the time he retires. I think he's good enough.
Hmm.
I think he's sort of like an underrated guy. And there's also a reason why you know, his mother team had to let him go and let
Yeah.
him go test free agency. And I hope he gets put in a position where he's elevated, you know what I mean? Where like he's made to be like the guy. And he is, and I think he is the guy, regardless. He's been but I'll also say he has had dynamic number one wide receivers and also pretty goddamn good tight end group during the entire time he's been there. So that always brings you back to the same question about Anthony Richardson that I always end with. Was it the quality of the talent around him? It was the University of Florida. When he started for 1 year, he had one of the lowest drop rates of this entire class, like 5.14 for, and I'm not looking at anything. I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
Only had like a 5% drop rate, which is awesome, by the way, if you're a quarterback, like I just throw some catchable shit. But is that because of the quality of wide receiver at Florida, right? And that's one of the things that like no data ever tells you, right?
Yeah.
That's why a guy like Will Levis is getting all this shine because it's Kentucky, not typically a stalwart in the SEC,
Yeah.
right?
Not at all. Yeah.
That's why he's getting shine. It's Anthony Richardson from Florida, which again, not kind of regardless if they're good or not, is a stalwart in the SEC. Like they're just, it's the University of Florida, man. Um, they're gonna have a really good recruiting class, and they're gonna be strong every year. Now, whether they're gonna be good individually, are they gonna be good collectively? I kind of think that's a very tough environment to play in. That's how I feel about University of Florida, University of Miami, Florida State. There's just so much pressure at those three schools specifically that it's very hard for them to win. Where you could see just a couple hundred miles north in Georgia, they're doing just fine, right?
Yeah.
A couple hundred miles to the west in Alabama, they're doing just fine. But in Florida, those schools I think are at a disadvantage. And we all kind of know why if you live here. It's Florida. So that'll always in my mind, I'll always wonder like, is Anthony Richards' stats like buoyed because he was surrounded by like probable future NFL players, right?
Yeah.
The same thing we'll always wonder like, can you win an NBA championship without like a leading scorer, without a leading man? Because like you could argue that Tyrese Halliburton, but he's not the leading man. Miles Turner is the leading man. But like, is he actually putting those numbers up? No. And it's like, oh, well, then nobody is doing that for the Pacers. They're just like, they have like 5 or 6 plus players on their team, guys that are better than what they're giving up. And that's why they're winning games is because like the majority of
Yeah.
their minute share is going to players that are better than average. But like once the Pacers go to their bench, from like the seventh man down are negative plus players. Like they're like negative. They're easily giving up a point a quarter to the guy guarding them, which means you're losing close games, right? Like, so yes, this means that the Pacers, for the record, we talked about how they have depth. Now they're top heavy because now they have like star power, right? That which was, oh, they just got some good, like a good 3-point shooter, it's a nice little quick guard, and then like, oh, Miles Turner's like a good center. Now you have like a benchmark or a landmark foundational center that has now gotten an extension that's going to improve his play, you'd think.
Yeah.
And then also, like I said, Buddy Hield and Tyrese Halliburton just made it to the finals of the 3-point contest. And I think that has that unique ability to bond those players for life and improve their on-court relationship, which makes them
Yeah.
even more dangerous. So that's what I'm really excited about is how that relationship, how it matured over the All-Star weekend, right? We had this like long layover in a midseason. You both got to go to the holiday kind of camp
Yeah.
thing and see all the bright lights and the big stars. What'd you come back with? Right? Because that's the hope is you see that they picked up how to guard somebody, you know what I mean? Get some points back. Because like I said, I still think
Yeah, for sure.
they're little. The Pacers are small.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be why they don't win the series against like the Sixers, right? Is because they're just small. So yeah, we're about an hour into the podcast, brother. We talked about, hey man, since last time we talked, Colts hired their head coach. Great. Haven't really done anything otherwise, but interviews and people.
Yeah.
Next time we talk, we should have full house. I'm hoping that's not that long of a process.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
And then we should have a couple games to talk about, I figure. Because what
Yeah, once we return.
combines in less than two
Let's see,
weeks,
combine. NFL combine, it's
March 3rd, right?
yeah.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, it starts on no, it starts on the 28th. So basically, a week from now.
Yeah. So next time we talk, it'll be post combine.
Your draft's
Yep.
in April, right?
Yeah, the end of April.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Huh, much.
got busy little week coming up. A lot of these guys we've been talking about, are about to get some
Yeah,
get
shoes are
some
about to
real
fall.
shine. And you're gonna know a lot more. And like I said, I hope the Colts draft relative athletics score, right? I hope they
Yeah,
do
for sure.
at
Yeah, that's gonna
quarterback.
happen. Yeah, that's a guarantee at this point. Basing myself off on pretty much every Chris Ballard draft. That's a guarantee.
Yeah, and like if you're gonna do it anywhere else, why wouldn't you do that at quarterback, right? Because you think the higher you reach as an athlete, the higher you can return from injury, right?
Yeah,
That's why you want to be the best athlete you can be at all times, especially if you're a pro, is because like you don't know when you're gonna break some shit, and then when you come back, like they always say you're never gonna come back 100%. I'm not even saying that. I'm saying that like every now and then you're gonna get hurt and you ain't gonna come back 100%,
yeah, yeah. It's gonna
right?
happen. Yeah,
It's gonna happen eventually where there's some fall off, unless you're LeBron apparently and you're immortal and it's whatever. But dude's like 75 years old, still putting up triple doubles and dunking from the free throw line. It's like,
yeah,
what's wrong with him? Does he have adamantium in him? Anyway, is he like Wolverine? It's like the Black
yeah.
Wolverine. That's what he is. I knew it. I like Wolverine, so it's whatever. But yeah, that's been season 2, episode 3 of The Cultist. Hey, have a great week, everybody. We'll see you after the combine.
Yeah.